All right, thanks for coming, everybody. As most of you know, I had a what I called a research intensive about 10 days ago, for about 10 days. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, the structure of it and the why. Just talk briefly about that. The other one I'll talk about too is some of the things I actually worked on while I was in that period, and that's two papers that certainly Jeff Jordan and I have been working on for quite a while now. One called Teaching Spatial Sound, another one called Concepts as Research. Also worked on more of Machines for Making, of which there's 5 pieces in that suite based on models of Peter Downton's. You can see this one here. And then the last one I'm now calling Academic Technique. For a while I was calling this the academic audit, or a view of the academic environment from the perspective of the academic. In other words, looking back up through the structure at the myriad or mass or tangle of process, compliance and complexity that you have to deal with on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. But I've thought now about being a bit more insightful and positive about it and call it academic technique. So looking at least one person's attempts to not just survive but possibly thrive in the environment, but time will tell whether that occurs or not. So yeah, they're the 4 things. We'll probably touch mostly on the Teaching Spatial Sound and the Concepts as Research paper for today. So one of the things I wanted to talk about initially was, so why did I do the research intensive? Well, it's the time of year, certainly in the Australian academic calendar, where things start to wind down teaching-wise, and the diary quickly gets filled up with workshops, talks, events, all the things that can't fit in the main part of the year. So potentially less institutional noise occurring around us. The other one then is to also actually look at the 3 things that I think are really important to surviving the environment, of being focus, energy and time. Yep.
Do you mind if we ask questions as you go? Or
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, we'll do it after you go. Yeah.
I don't have
okay. Oh, that was the question. Right, okay, thank you. Very good.
That's your one question.
Yeah. So basically the process was to step back for approximately 11 days, to not look at email, although I had one secret conduit through Jeff, if it was really urgent. As I said, not to look at that, and just to concentrate on writing and working on pieces. So when I sat down in the morning, or a period after lunch, the only programs I'd open would be the ones to make work or write. Wouldn't look at anything else. And another motivation for doing this is that Greg Moore and I had the major project students from the Master of Design, Innovation, Technology in semester 2. So we had 5 of those students, and when we started to talk to them about their time management and their time planning, we realised this was virgin territory for them. No one had ever really spoken to them about planning out a major project in any way, or how to look at their time on a weekly basis, to get down to a level of granularity that you can deal with when you get up in the morning. So it's all well and good to say, well, you've got to put in so many hours to something, but what does that look like? And of course the students had no idea around this. So what did it mean to have to do 18 hours work on something a week? How do you say no? When do you say no? When do you commit? How do you set up a time and space boundary to allow you to work on something continuously for a period of time? And so we took them through this over a number of weeks. Got them to do some reading, got them to do some time tracking, got them to do some planning within that, and some things like that. And then to set up some rules, like no email before lunchtime, or time blocking out periods through your diary so that you actually had distinct times to work on. This is a very topical argument through productivity literature, creative disciplines, information workers, etc. But even while I was working on over that 10-day period, this appeared in Time magazine. I'll make all these URLs available. But basically talking about these 2 things here. difference between deep work and shallow work, and acknowledging that most of us get caught up in shallow work pretty easily, mainly because that's the onslaught we all experience, the onslaught of emails and things to do and phone calls and time-dependent, or very time-pressured requests for information. But the main one we're all striving for, of course, is deep work. And this particular article sums it up pretty well. I often find with a lot of this literature, it's good to collect it and collate it, because it ultimately it really comes down to a very few number of techniques, but it's good to go fishing. What things work for you, what things don't. If you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, it's going to mean something else again. But anyway, I found this one pretty useful at the time. And I just said it was interesting that I was in this mode anyway, that I found it. Which one? It's at the time one, isn't it? Okay, go back. The other one was another one that appeared in the Age newspaper. And probably all wondered about this. Has technology made us stupid, and can a dead philosopher save our brains? This was turned out to be a book extract, but from a new book on Bertrand Russell's In Praise of Idleness paper. And, but again, looking at the nature of creative and imaginative work. So, there are two that came out in that time. So I'll just jump now, just have a look at some actual structural items. Okay, so if you're an academic involved in research at RMIT, or an academic at RMIT, you have something called the Workload Allocation model. And I think when we all first got these, we all rolled our eyes and went, oh God, not another thing to get your head around, and another bunch of numbers, and someone's come up with a spreadsheet. It looked onerous. Then it dawned on me one day that in fact this is a terrific tool. We have just been handed a potential goldmine out of this one. If you go anywhere in the university and ask to do something, you'll have to seek out a budget, get a approval, process, etc., etc. In other words, someone else will hold resources that you're after. We've been handed a whole lot of resources here. Someone's quantified our time for us. And that's what basically the academic workload model is. So it goes through all the main activities you have to do. It's an interactive spreadsheet. You can put in the hours and calculate and come up with basically an annual budget. This is your annual time budget of what you can dedicate to something, and get a sense of how this might actually play out over a year. It doesn't actually go much further than this table. I'll show you the next slide where I've gone through and unravelled this and show you what it could look like over a year. What could this mean? Well, maybe we get to about 2/3 of the way through the year and we start getting more admin requests, and there are unfunded requests. Maybe we have no more time for them, perhaps. Okay, but on this one here, there's up to 60% of a workload can go into research, which is about 994 hours. So this is some data pulled from elsewhere in the document. A full working year at RMIT, most academic institutions, equates to 1,656 hours. That's taking 46 weeks of work within that. So if you look at what a 20% load is, this one here equates to 330 hours per week, and at the other, then about halfway through, this one here equates to 660 hours. So what does that really look like? So here's a time budget that I had a look at through the while I was on leave for one afternoon. So there's basically two versions here. There's one version here which is looking at a 40% of your time is involved in research, and there's one here looking at 20%. So these aren't the maximal one. These are sort of the minimum and halfway. Now, part of the reason I did this was I thought, okay, I think the research intensives are really important. Just going back to the article I just showed about shallow work and deep work. The way I structure my diary at the moment is that I do try and keep mornings free for being in my home study. And that's quite okay for 3 or 4 hours work, but it's 3 or 4 hours. We're not talking getting into that sense of flow that you would over 3 or 4 days. And also being able to push away distractions. So they're actually quite still short periods of time, although they are regular, which is important. You tend to be the thing you do the most. You sit around answering lots of emails. You're somebody who answers lots of emails. You're somebody who sits around writing or doing code or designing or writing music or etc. That's what you are. Ultimately, it's actually what you are. So this is a way of sort of trying to begin to structure what it is you want to be. So basically what I wanted to do was to look at how could I take the regularity of working every morning with the benefits of doing some kind of intensive at a regular period. And here's 2 versions of that. So in version 1, basically the way I thought about this is that if you go through and calculate for a semester, which is 12 weeks, 5 days a week, you do 3.5 hours per day in the morning. So that means Monday to Friday, you get 3.5 days at the desk. That's for 12 weeks. Then you get into the end of semester and mid-semester periods. You get a bit more time.
Does that include assessment as well?
I'm just talking about research time. Yeah, I'm just talking about blocks of time that you can dedicate to research. So if you look at that first of all, get 12 weeks. Yeah. The basic thing, of course, during semester, you have to be available. You've got teaching commitments, you've got masters, you've got supervisions, etc. So you can't necessarily take the big block of time that you might want. Okay, so if you do that, you can acquit basically about 420 hours of the quota, or your budget, about 660. Now, the other thing we want to do with this model is to still have those periods of time that are uninterrupted. And if you look at periods of 4 days, and a cycle of those, say 6 hours a day, roughly, you can actually get, if you do 4 lots of those, 10 lots of 4 hours interspersed through the year, plus this block up here, you can get through your 660 hours. So, what does that mean? I haven't got a nice graphic of this one yet. This is what I use per annum. Go through and look at potential questions. I've done these for Jeff and myself for the last couple of years. Basically, we Gantt chart the year. And it's a way of looking forward and going, okay, if we say yes to that concert or that project, what else is around it? Because one of the things we usually find with this is the preparation time. Someone says, oh, can you come and do this for 3 days? Well, sure, but you have to be ready to do it. And so it's the lead-in time. And if you're trying to do the lead-in work over something else, it's really difficult. Anyway, on this particular diagram, I went through and worked out cycles of 4 days. So you might have, did I call it A? Yeah. So through January, February, March, etc., you might look at run off version A for 3 weeks, and then in the 4th week, you do a 4-day block. Then you do another couple of weeks of just working mornings, and then you do another block of 4 days. So you think about your diary. If you suddenly said, okay, I'm not going to be here Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, that's kind of doable. You go on a conference, you go on a trip, you get all the benefits of the intensive, being on a plane, reading, not being disturbed. Oh, sorry, couldn't get your email, I'm in Europe. I thought, why not have those benefits here? So basically what this is, it's a cycle of working mornings regularly, but then doing a 4-day block of uninterrupted time, approximately every 4 to 5 weeks. And I actually went through and worked it out on a Gantt chart. The fluorescent marks down there are actually school terms, not the RMIT ones. Now, the other thing I wanted to work out as well was make it realistic. There's no point just putting it in evenly and then going, oh, hang on, that's assessment week, or that's PRS, that's a busy period. So down here, as I said, it's approximately every 4 to 5 weeks. So the idea being, in summary, is to get a cycle happening. regular mornings, and then Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. The reason for choosing something like Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday is that you're not away for a full week. Again, we know how it works around institutions. You say to someone, oh, I'll only be here at the beginning of the week, but I'll be back by Wednesday. Everyone go, yeah, okay, that's fine. Doesn't feel like you've totally withdrawn. Usually not too much is going to sort of pile up in that period of time. It also means you get to work 2 full days, and then you've got the weekend for that fermenting process. You're not going back into the noise again. Then you get to work on it Monday, Tuesday. And I know that's how Jim did his masters. Very much would prepare and then just spend a block of time on something. So anyway, so that was the idea behind all that one. One on the other side is then just looking at the short version. If you want to do the short version, if you've gone through your work plan, you've got 330 hours per annum, you can still do the way that breaks down is that for 12 weeks of the year, so in the 12-week during semester period times 3 days times 3 hours during semester, presumably because you've got less research allocation and more teaching allocation, so again, you have to be present for that. And then for 6 times during the year, you get a 3-day intensive. And just to make the numbers add up, I stuck a 4 day in there, so we get a balanced budget, time budget at the bottom. So regular work periods, intensive, regular work period, intensive, in that cycle.